All right, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining us today with our alcohol delivery dangers, how major convenience creates new risks for minors. We're so excited to have you all here today, as well as our featured speakers. Just a few items as we go into our meeting. This is a meeting, so please make sure that you stay muted so that we can hear our speakers. Our conversation will, at this point, will run for a little bit over an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And again, we hope that you have questions for our speakers as we go throughout their presentations. Please make sure you use the chat box. We will have a kind of Q&A session towards the end. This webinar is being recorded for future use, and we will be sharing all of the materials with folks in the coming week. And we do have some handouts and other things, materials to share with you all. I am Deborah Lake. I work at the Governor's Prevention Partnership. We are a nonprofit organization that works with the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services and the Prevention Training Technical Assistance Service Center. Lisa Mason will also be managing our question and answer session, and we work together to put this on for you all. Again, thank you to Demas for their support. We are very excited to be having this conversation here today. All right, so our featured speakers today are Carrie Christophus. She's the Executive Director of the National Liquor Enforcement Association. Matthew Stemple, who is the Assistant Special Agent for the North Carolina Department of Public Safety and part of the Alcohol Law Enforcement Division. We have Robert Willard from our Connecticut Department of Consumer Protection. He is a supervising liquor control agent. And Officer Christopher Rinaldi from the Naugatuck High School School Resource Officer. And then Pamela Motti, who is the Director for the Alliance for Prevention and Wellness, which is a regional behavioral health action organization, also part of Demas. So we're very excited to have them all today. And without further ado, I will pass it on to Carrie.
Hi, welcome. As Deborah had stated, I'm Carrie Christophus, Executive Director for the National Liquor Law Enforcement Association. As most of you in attendance today, I have a background in prevention and coalition work through my prior employment for a single county authority in the state of Pennsylvania. I also have a background in policing and know how important it is for prevention and enforcement to come together for the public health and safety of our communities. I'm going to try to go through my presentation and tell you when to flip to my next slides, but also remember what it is I want to say. So you can go ahead and flip to my next slide. So the National Liquor Law Enforcement Association, we're a nonprofit association. We're governed by an executive board and our membership. Our main goal is to improve the standards and practices of liquor law enforcement and promote public health and safety. Our membership is mainly made up of law enforcement to include alcohol law enforcement officers, agents, or inspectors, and the terminology depends on how your state is set up. And also, whether you're alcohol law enforcement or maybe sworn officers or not sworn officers, and also may depend on their local police, state police, sheriff's departments, also campus police and alcohol regulatory agencies. You can go ahead and go to my next slide. We have three main levels of membership. We have an agency membership, which gives alcohol law enforcement agencies or just law enforcement agencies the ability to register their whole agency for membership, and then also the ability to vote. We have individual membership, which also consists of law enforcement as well. And then we have an associate membership level, which would be the right membership level for, say, a prevention organization or a coalition. Our members benefit, and you can go to my next slide. Our members benefit from our yearly enforcement training symposiums and our annual conferences. And these opportunities allow us to engage regularly and share policies, protocols, procedures, and best practices on alcohol law enforcement. And this year, in light of COVID-19, we did create a virtual training series and recorded trainings that membership can have access to on subjects like fake ID detection, source investigations, home delivery compliance checks, just to name a few. And then we'll be rolling out more of those trainings also in 2021. You can go to my next slide. In these next couple of slides, I'm going to talk to you about today's subject at hand, which is alcohol delivery dangers, and how the convenience has not only created new risks for minors, but has also created unprecedented shifts and changes in the alcohol marketplace, adding additional challenges for alcohol law enforcement. In May, some of our membership agencies were starting to resume from COVID-19 shutdowns that occurred in March, and had the capacity to then start conducting underage alcohol compliance checks in response to reports and complaints from youth accessing alcohol through these new access points of home delivery, curbside pickup. And some of the states were starting to report violation rates of alcohol also, being used by minors. So I'm going to run through just some of what the definitions of alcohol delivery and curbside pickup are, because we've been hearing these terms so often lately. So with home delivery, we're referring to restaurants, bars, and retailers delivering alcohol to people's homes through either the use of their own employees or possibly through a third-party delivery service like Instacart or Uber Eats. For curbside pickup, it's when consumers can purchase alcohol from a restaurant, bar, or retailer. Usually in a restaurant or a bar, you have to have food to go with that as well. And having the business bring those items out to their vehicle. Also with drinks or cocktails to go, it's the selling of a single serving of alcoholic beverages. Again, usually with a food purchase from a restaurant or bar for consumption for off-premise. Another challenge that we've been running into as well is the checking or properly checking of IDs when a consumer is wearing a mask. You can go to my next slide. So in gathering some information from our member agencies on home delivery compliance checks, they were revealing that third-party delivery services were routinely delivering alcohol and leaving them on doorsteps. Having conversations and collecting some data, we talked to the California Department of Alcoholic Beverage, and they revealed that third-party delivery services were, they had an 80% failure rate in their first round of compliance. So they've continued to do compliance checks. In the second round, they had reported a 60% failure rate. And in the third round, they had reported a 38% failure rate. They are also continuing to do these checks and work with their delivery services to ensure that alcohol is not being left on doorsteps and that IDs are being properly checked. North Carolina, which you will hear from in a bit from Matt Stemple, has conducted age compliance checks prior to COVID, and he's going to share some disturbing behavior by drivers and delivery personnel that was observed that you'll want to be aware of too. For curbside pickup and delivery, our alcohol law enforcement agencies are just getting back on board with being allowed to do those compliance checks in light of COVID and not wanting to put an underage decoy or a decoy at all in an unsafe place. So with curbside checks, I know that Montgomery County in Maryland is doing a mystery shops program, and they have reported that in some of their operations, in their alcohol to go, 55% did not ask for an ID when the order was picked up. Now, they are using people that are 21 years of age or older, and usually they pick people that are just turned 21. So the sell is legal, but what they're really looking for is, did they even ask for ID? And in 55% of the cases, they did not. Also, when they're calling in an order to place an order that also contains alcohol, they're noting whether they are even being told that they're going to have to supply an identification when they come and pick up that alcohol. And in 15% of those cases, the customer's not even being told that you need to come in. When you come in, you're going to have an ID to pick up that order. We're also paying attention to the containers and what they look like for to-go orders. Iowa was the first state to permanently legalize cocktails to go, and all that information can be found on their website, and what those restrictions are when it comes to how they need to, secure their alcohol. They need to be in a bottle with a tamper evident screw cap. Or a sealable bag, kind of like what the juice pouches look like. And they also need to, depending on how that looks, use shrink wrap seal. And they have some videos too that you can view to see how they've set that up. So it's really important, if states are going that route, that they do properly seal the alcohol, and then also educate consumers and customers on where that alcohol can be placed in their vehicle, so as not to violate any open container rules. The NLLEA, we have been sharing some best practices around home delivery and cocktails to go. And with home delivery, some of our recommendations right off the bat are that drivers be trained on the applicable alcohol beverage control laws and policies for their state in which they are delivering the alcohol, because every state is a little bit different, and that they know how to properly check for identification. That they also have a stake in the game and know that they can be liable for furnishing alcohol to a minor. And that liability could either fall on the delivery driver themselves, or on the delivery service, and also on the retailer, depending how those state statutes are set up. We're also sharing some best practices, like I said, for licensed establishments on how to card individuals wearing a mask. I know Vermont Division of Liquor Control has a great poster that reminds servers and sellers how to appropriately card someone when wearing a mask, and reminding servers and sellers that not to just, take a glance at the picture, but also to keep in mind, what is the eye color? What is the height? Maybe the placement of the ears. They are allowed to ask people to remove their mask if they can maintain a safe distance of the 6 feet separation. And as always, a server or seller has the right not to sell that alcohol. They can refuse that sell if they do not feel that the person presenting the ID is the same person on the ID. So just reminding licensed establishments, of those best practices as well. So how do we balance all of this? Balancing public health and alcohol regulation. I feel like we're going round and round. Our alcohol law enforcement agents are also being responsible to enforce COVID-19 compliance and do inspections in bars and restaurants. And then also looking at our law enforcement capacity and all the other, things that they have going on and things that they need to enforce. So we have quite a lot going on in alcohol law enforcement these days. Balancing that public health and alcohol regulations has become more of a challenge in light of COVID pandemic and loosens restrictions on licensees. We're experiencing increased alcohol access points with increased licensees for non-traditional settings, expanded distribution with direct-to-consumer shipping and home delivery, and increased access with curbside pickup and cocktails to go. As alcohol beverage marketplace changes rapidly, comes increased responsibilities for alcohol law enforcement and alcohol regulatory authorities to maintain compliance in an orderly and safe alcohol marketplace, and also protect public's health and safety from alcohol-related harms. So we need to show why our policies are in place and why the sale and consumption of alcohol needs to be a well-regulated environment. So as regulations are being chipped away at, it's important that there's a strong narrative on why alcohol should be strongly regulated and enforced. We're still dealing with the short-term outcomes or consequences of these hurried decisions that affect public health and safety. And we have yet to see what the long-term consequences are going to be. So much more research and data gathering will be needed in this area. And that's where alcohol law enforcement and all law enforcement needs your help, the help of community coalitions and prevention to help gather that data so that we can see, what are our long-term consequences, but then also and able to respond quickly to our short-term consequences. So I just want to thank you for your time today. I've kind of given you more of a national overview, the big picture of what we've been looking at with alcohol law enforcement. I know Matt has a lot more, information to share on his study with home deliveries. So I just want to thank you for your support. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. All of my contact information is available. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I'm Assistant Special Agent in Charge Matt Stemple with the North Carolina Alcohol Law Enforcement Division. I'm out of the Greensboro office. Today I'm speaking on the alcohol delivery compliance check study that we conducted. It was at the end of 2018, beginning of 2019. It was in order to kind of give advice and information to the ABC Commission and to the state legislature so they could work on creating a law related to alcohol delivery compliance checks. If you want to go to the next slide. So the objective of the operation was to conduct compliance checks on alcohol delivery services in North Carolina to determine the sale to underage rates for each delivery service and of alcohol delivery services as a whole. Next slide. During these compliance checks, we conducted 18 in total. These were conducted in the greater Charlotte and greater Raleigh areas of North Carolina. Next slide. We used two different minors. One was a youthful appearing 19-year-old male. He was used in 4 of the 18 compliance checks. The other one was an 18-year-old male. He was used in 14 of the 18 compliance checks. We were hoping to conduct 20 compliance checks. However, one of the alcohol delivery services ended up blocking the email address and the credit card that we were using at the time. And when I talk about alcohol delivery services, I'm referencing Amazon, Postmates, Instacart, Drizzly, although Drizzly is a website that will connect them with a retailer, which the retailer actually delivers themselves. Go to the next slide. So the procedures for conducting the operation: before scheduling the operations, I had to conduct research to determine and make sure that alcoholic beverages could be delivered in 1 hour or less from each of the selected delivery services. Before beginning each compliance check, the underage person's identification was examined. They were checked to make sure they did not have a fictitious identification. They were instructed to present their identification if requested, and also to answer all questions truthfully. Orders were placed from or through Instacart, Postmates, Amazon, and Drizzly websites. And if we encountered a age verification prompt, a fictitious date of birth was entered to ensure that an attempted delivery was made. We wanted to make sure check that interaction between the underage and the delivery driver. Next slide. After each purchase attempt was made, they had to work at an establishment that held a permit under 18B 1001, such as a restaurant, convenience store, a bar, or nightclub. And although Amazon holds an off-premise establishment for the sale of alcohol, or did at that time under the name Prime Now, they were not considered to have worked in a retail establishment, considering that they did not interact with customers on premises. Next slide. After each interview was completed, the couriers were informed of the four acceptable forms of identification pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 18B 302D1. For us, those are a North Carolina Special Identification Card, a driver's license, military photo identification, and a passport. They were reminded not to sell alcoholic beverages to underage and intoxicated individuals. And if the courier completed the transaction with an underage person, they were provided with an oral warning. This was completely a data gathering operation. We did not issue citations. We did not do administrative violations. We just wanted to know what the sell rate was. Next slide. So we found that there were about 4 potential outcomes overall of the compliance checks. The first one was what they should have done. The courier checks identification and they deny the delivery. I believe there's a video next.
I have beer from Loretta.
Yeah, that's my sister. She just left.
Okay, and I just need a driver's license.
All right.
How old are you?
19.
From 1999 to 2018. Okay. You have to be 21.
Oh, okay.
I can't leave the beer.
Okay, that's fine.
Is she here?
She's not. She left.
Okay. Yeah, I can't leave the beer.
Okay. That's fine.
All right.
Thank you.
Alcohol law enforcement, you mind if I talk to you for a second in here? Thank you for not selling to them.
All right.
You mind if I talk to you in here right quick?
I don't
It's
mind at
raining. Okay. Hey, how you doing? So what we're doing is a minor we'll step down a little bit more. Is a minor compliance campaign, just making sure that courier services aren't delivering alcohol to underage persons.
Yeah.
You're the first person out of 4 individuals today to not sell.
Well, I did good.
Thank you.
And one thing I meant to mention, when they deny delivery, if they contact their company, if they contact corporate, then oftentimes corporate will actually give them a $15 stipend for refusing to deliver. Oftentimes this comes out of the purchaser's account.
I can't hear.
Next, there should be a video for this as well.
How's it going?
Doing great, thank you. Yeah, I won't be able to log off anything except from the.
Okay.
Thank you. How's your weekend?
Pretty good, pretty good.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Little highlight of the beer.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah, for the price, man, this is one of the best. I think
yeah.
it's just the local, like, the US beer,
Yeah.
because it's made here and
Mm-hmm.
served here, that's why it's cheap.
Yep.
I think it's good.
I appreciate it.
Have a good one.
Have a good one.
Hey, how you doing, sir? Especially with alcohol. Nothing like that. Come very quick.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the problem.
Just to look at the beer.
Beer, yeah.
Oh, okay. I got you. You know, the guy you just delivered to?
Yeah.
He's only 19 years old.
I scanned his ID.
You scanned his ID?
Yeah, and I scanned the ID, and I mean, it made me in. And just now I'm going to my car and
What did it show?
now it doesn't say scan ID anymore because I was scanned.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it already closed out the order for you?
Well, now when I'm walking out, I was going back in because it won't let me go. Again, before it says scan ID. Now,
You okay?
yeah, I am a the customer.
Yeah,
I don't know.
okay.
Yeah.
And that just, does that just
Yeah.
close out the order?
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. You scan his ID. His ID shows that he's 19 years old.
No, we don't know. We just scan the ID. That's why we.
Okay. Right, but he's 19 years old, regardless of whether you scan the ID or not. He's 19 years old, and he just gave beer to a 19-year-old kid.
I mean,
No,
if the app won't let me log off, I'm going back to the guy.
Well, no, I mean, the deal's done already. The deal's done.
Yeah.
I need your ID.
But the app, I mean, I used to work at a gas station for 12 years. I always check IDs like that and all that, but this time here is the app, like
I know, but
something trusted.
It's still incumbent upon you as a person to make sure that they're of age, don't rely on the app. He completed the delivery. Somebody asked if the app actually tells them not to deliver or tells them their age. It does. It'll instruct them to pick up the alcohol and return it to the alcohol retailer. Then the third issue that we had was that the courier relinquishes custody of the product, does not check identification, and completes the delivery. If you want to.
Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Special Agent Stemple with Alcohol Law Enforcement. You mind if I talk to you back here right quick? You know the kid you just gave the beer to is only 19 years old. Let's step back in here.
But
Yeah.
it wouldn't have let me close it out without checking his ID. I forgot to get his
Let's step
ID.
back in here. Yeah, I know you did. Well, so have you ever worked in the alcohol industry?
Have I ever walked in? No.
Yeah, like bar, restaurants, anything like that. You got your ID with you?
Yeah. I would have, just so you know though, I would have had to go back in here.
That's what
it won't let me close out my app without even.
Yeah, that's what the last person said, but you did the exact same thing. 1 second. have this. So I'll tell you this, we're not looking at charging you today, not looking at writing a ticket or taking a jail or anything like that. This is a data gathering mission. Unless for some reason the DA's office says no, take out, give them tickets. So right now what we're doing is getting information, interviewing individuals.
You got to do your job,
Yeah.
so I'm not mad at that, but I just wanted to know, like, it was a simple mistake. Like, I couldn't have gotten no further than I was actually getting ready to try to close out his order, and it won't let me do it until I see his ID, so I'd have had to turn back around.
Right. Have you ever delivered beer before?
Yeah, lots of times.
Lots of times. So
not lots. I don't get a lot of beer orders, but I've done it maybe 10 times.
Okay, 10 times.
Okay. And I apologize for any connection issue. I'm actually in the office on the Ethernet connection, so I don't know what's going on. The fourth issue that we encountered was the courier relinquishes custody of the product. They check identification and knowingly allow the underage to keep the product. And there's a video for that as well.
Do you have your ID? Yeah, mine's not scanning, so I have to...
No.
So you're not 21?
No.
So whose ID am I delivering it to that's 21?
That's supposed to be me.
How can you buy beer if you're not 21?
I guess I can't.
Well, this could get me in trouble, but I guess I'll just enter my ID in there.
Okay.
You really can't do that. I could get in a lot of trouble for that. So I do not feel like returning it. She's worked with me entering my information before, so let's see. 99, so that would mean you're turning 21. How old are you?
2 years. 19.
No one else would probably have done this, but hope I don't get in trouble. Don't do anything crazy.
Okay.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Special Agent Stemple with Alcohol Law Enforcement. How are you doing today? Let's step back in here and talk for a second. He's underage. Let's step back in here and talk for a second.
Was he underage?
Yeah, you scanned his ID and you told him, hey, I know that you're not 21. Whose card did you use? Whose date of birth am I supposed to be looking at?
Yeah, it was a different name. He's not 21.
No, and you checked his ID and you confirmed he wasn't 21. But listen, today I'm not gonna write you a ticket. I'm not gonna take you to jail. Right now, we're doing
Why are they doing this? Why would they
to prevent something like this from happening in the future. He's working with us. Okay.
I've never done that before, but I didn't want to have to go all the way back and return. I shouldn't have did it. I shouldn't have did it.
Out of the 18 total compliance checks we conducted, there were 5 cells. Although it's a small sample size, it accounts for 27.78% cell rate. The underage person was handed the alcoholic beverages in 10 of the attempted purchases, approximately 55.56%. And in half of those instances, the courier received the alcoholic beverage and informed the underage that the cell could not be completed. For the purposes of the study, the cell was not considered complete until the courier walked away from the apartment and the underage was in possession of the alcoholic beverages. Next slide. This is a breakdown of number of compliance checks and cell rate, and then times alcoholic beverages were handed to the underage, excluding the cells. Overall, Postmates looks like did the worst. Instacart had 1 completed cell out of 6, and then Drizzly had 1 out of 2. Again, those were the retailers that were delivering themselves. Drizzly was only the mediator to complete the cell. Next slide. Identification was requested and presented in 16 of the 18 compliance checks. The underage person's age was requested in 6 of the 18 compliance checks, and in every instance in which the courier requested the person's age, they also checked the identification. Out of the 5 completed cells, identification was not requested and presented in 2 attempts. In one of the completed cells, the courier scanned the underage person's identification, but according to the courier, did not take a look at his cell phone screen. You saw that video. And then in another instance, the courier scanned the ID, knew that the person Then out of all the compliance checks, again, identification was checked 16 times. 3 of those ended in cells, and both times identification was not checked. Both of those ended in cells. Next slide. Regarding ABC retail experience, for Instacart, there were 2 individuals who had retail experience, Postmates only 1. And of course, both individuals that we ordered through Drizzly had retail experience. In total, 5 out of 13 of the attempts, the couriers had retail experience. Next slide. Of those that had retail experience, 2 out of the 5 completed the cell, and 3 was individuals need to make sure that they checked identification. And over half the cases, the underage person was handed the alcoholic beverage. They need to make sure that they check identification before relinquishing custody of the alcoholic beverage. And approximately 27.78% of compliance checks ended in cells. Again, it would have been helped by checking identification. And then in the one instance, the courier made the delivery, who had a delivery had a misdemeanor controlled substance violation. This may be irrelevant to other states, but in North Carolina, if you have a controlled substance conviction, it's a misdemeanor, or a misdemeanor alcoholic beverage conviction within the previous 2 years, you cannot hold a permit or be involved in the sale, service, distribution of alcoholic beverages, and 3 years for a felony. In this instance, we recommended that they do a criminal record check and make sure they're hiring appropriate people. Continue. And then in one of the completed cells, again, the courier knowingly gave alcoholic beverages to an underage person. They should hire trustworthy employees. Make sure that they know the incentives for refusing a cell. Next slide. And again, now that we're in the COVID-19 pandemic, there are a few things that couriers can do to ensure that they're not selling to underage individuals. It's recommended that they place identification on a flat surface such as a clipboard. They should establish the appropriate distance. 6 feet is what CDC recommends. Review the date of birth, review the ID, compute the age, scan the identification, and then also ask the individual to briefly uncover their face with a mask, then remask. And if they're of age, if they're not intoxicated, complete the transaction or otherwise deny the delivery attempt. If you guys have any questions, that's my contact information. I think they're going to Deborah's going to post it as well. And that is all I have for you. I appreciate y'all.
All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Again, I am Robert Willard. I'm a supervising liquor control agent for the Connecticut State Liquor Control, which is a division of the Department of Consumer Protection. We are a regulatory agency only. Agents do not have law enforcement powers, but we do work with the police departments a lot in enforcement of the liquor control laws. Again, our division is regulating all persons and firms involved in distributing, selling, and dispensing alcoholic liquor, preventing sales to minors and intox, maintaining product integrity, ensuring licensed premises are safe and sanitary. Next slide, please. And the division is a primary investigative arm of the Connecticut Liquor Control Commission. We as agents, we do train police, recruit, and police for their recertification in Connecticut on liquor control laws. And we are a small division in Connecticut. A lot of people don't even know Connecticut had liquor control agents. There's only 15 agents who are regulating and licensing approximately, well, it's over 6,000 permits in the state of Connecticut. Next slide. And as you will see, Connecticut is not new to direct shipment or delivery, although because of COVID, they loosened up a little of the laws, but Connecticut already had some laws and regulations in place to allow direct shipment and delivery to consumers in Connecticut. One of them is package stores, which is our liquor stores, full liquor stores. The purchase must occur at the permit premise and then not through third party. I know there's companies that have tried to come out with third party apps where you can order and pay for the liquor through them and then the money goes back to the package store. Connecticut does not allow that. The verification of age and purchase must happen at the package store and only during their legal hours of sales. A package store can directly deliver as part of their permit. And if they decide to do ship in-state, it's got to be shipped by a permitted transporter. And we'll get to the transporter permits in a little bit. Also, currently, our manufacturers are allowed liquor to go and direct shipment. And we have farm wineries that manufacture wine, cider, and mead. The holder of these permits, they can direct ship to a consumer in the state via the internet or any other online computer network. And they have to post a liquor permit when in advertising. You can go to the next slide, Deborah. And Connecticut does have laws in place that if these manufacturers do direct ship, that the box being shipped directly to the person receiving the product must be labeled according by the regulation and laws. And the person doing the delivery is required to check ID, similar to how Matthew's compliance checks were handled. By checking the valid motor vehicle license or identity card. You can skip the next slide, Deborah. You can show it. It's just a carry over the law involving how a product is direct shipped, the package label, how they have to check IDs. They can't ship more than 5 gallons at one given time. Talks about the taxes to the revenue. It's a long law. And if they're going to direct ship, they're required again to hire an in-state transporter's permit holder. And I think the way Connecticut is built right now, it is limited on who can get these in-state transporters permits. The key word in the next slide, please, Deborah. The key word that we look at in the department and how the department's interpretation and policy in this, if you go down, it's section 30-19F of the Connecticut General Statutes. It's allow commercial transportation. So in Connecticut, I guess luckily, like right now, we do not see a lot of complaints In the home delivery, we've had a couple, I think maybe two or three complaints over the five to six past years. And it's because of this commercial transportation requirement that the department looks for to get a transporter's permit. Most of the year, our transporter's permits are motor freight carriers similar to FedEx, UPS, who hold these permits. And because of this commercial transportation requirement, an individual who might be a driver for Uber Eats, if their car is not commercially licensed or plated in Connecticut, they cannot obtain this transporter's permit. And the law just above the transporter's permit, that is new this year, just went in effect July 1st. It's the second part of this. Out-of-state winery shippers permits, we've had that permit for a while now. And that allows direct shipment to a consumer in the state. That is more of your wine clubs, that you might get a wine club out of California who direct ships to a consumer in the state. We've had that law for quite a few years now. And again, they're required, just like our in-state manufacturers, to adhere to the direct shipment of hiring and the labeling of the box, of hiring a transporter for delivery, a transporter's permit for delivery, and the requirements, how that box is going to be labeled and delivered to the individual. The new permit I just mentioned a few seconds ago is this out-of-state retailer shipper's permit for wine. What that covers, if I was a liquor store in New York and I'm carrying a wine that's for some reason not available in Connecticut, that liquor store in New York can now apply for this new permit, the out-of-state retailer shipper's permit. And again, their same requirements is to direct ship to Connecticut. They would have to hire a transporter's permit. That transporter's permit, it's got to make sure the box is labeled and delivered according to the law, as I previously stated. Next slide, please. If I'm going too fast, just let me know, guys. Currently in the state of Connecticut, we already had alcohol takeout, and majority of that currently, this is before any COVID executive orders, was always at our manufacturing permits, which is the beer, wine, mead, cider, distilled spirits. All the manufacturers are allowed to sell sealed containers to go. Each manufacturer type has different quantity allowances. Under spirits, it should not sell to any one consumer more than 3 liters of spirits per day and not more than 5 gallons of spirits in any 2-month period. Beer, manufacturer, not more than 9 gallons of beer to be sold to any person on any day on which the sale is authorized. And the wine, cider, and mead permit, the sale of retail from premise of sealed bottles of other sealed containers of such wine, brandy, or consumption for off premise. Next slide, please. Also currently, our restaurant and cafe permits were allowed to sell draft beer to go and an unsealed bottle of wine if it was purchased with a meal at the time. It can be recorked and taken with those individuals when leaving the restaurants. So part 1 is a patron shall be allowed to remove 1 unsealed bottle of wine for off-premises consumption, provided the patron has purchased such bottle of wine at such premise, and has purchased a full course meal and consumed a portion of that bottle of wine with such meal on such premise. The second part of that was talking about draft beer shall also authorize the sale of retail from the premise of sealed containers supplied and filled by the permittee of draught beer for consumption off the premise. Such sales will be conducted only during the hours of a package store permitted to sell alcohol. Next slide, please. Now, the only allowance added because of COVID, besides curbside pickup at package stores, grocery beer permits, and restaurants and cafes that are open during this time, the on-premise permits, besides draft beer, can now allow the sale of closed and sealed containers of alcoholic beverages, including mixed drinks, so long as they are sold with takeout food order and the sale is consistent with local municipal open container ordinances or other requirements. And I learned since this meeting started that Connecticut actually isn't, or Connecticut legislators are in active discussions with our department I'm trying to make the above statement a permanent law change. Again, although the delivery and takeout has increased, not so much in Connecticut. Connecticut has not received, or our department has not received many complaints on the home delivery. Again, it's not new to Connecticut, but we do have restrictions on who can deliver that. That's all I have. Connecticut, again, Connecticut is not overly new to this. It's just a newer on-premise and curbside pickup. And thanks again for listening. And I'll be here if there's any questions or comments after. Thanks.
Thanks, Rob. Pam?
I'm unmuting. Sorry, it took a few minutes to unmute. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to share with you a little bit about what the regional behavioral health action organizations are seeing here in Connecticut. We have 5 RBHAOs, as we're called. As mentioned from our previous speakers, you know, we do see the alcohol to go with our takeout delivery. We have not, the good news is we have not heard too much of the underage access with that, but we do know it is a risk factor because, you know, I'm going to share one example in one of the regions of our state. Someone went, they picked up their food off the table and then the alcohol was not there. So they called the restaurant, they went back and they had just left it out in the parking lot on the table for them to take back and go pick up. So there was no age verification. So that is a risk factor. But again, that is a case in which the person was of legal age picking up their order. Some of the things that we have heard too is some of the package stores that are doing home delivery. Many of them, the local stores that are doing the home delivery, that many times the alcohol is being left on the doorstep. So we do have issues where there is no age verification. We also have issues of anyone walking by can steal the package, especially, you know, if it's a case of beer that's being left on the doorstep. And again, we have heard about the issues with carding and folks wearing masks if they're using an older sibling's identification. So, you know, with that said, we know here in Connecticut that retail alcohol sales have been up 55% since the onset of COVID. And we know that with an increase in demand and an increase in consumption, there's an increase in alcohol misuse. So, you know, as we're sitting here talking today about our access to minors with the alcohol delivery system, this is something that here in Connecticut we need to be aware of, we need to be proactive with, especially during the pandemic. You know, here in Connecticut, as mentioned, you can be 18 and older to serve alcohol with some of those home deliveries if they do have that commercial license. Grubhub and Uber Eats and Instacart, they vary between, I think Instacart is 18, but Uber Eats and Grubhub, you need to be 19. So again, where's there a point of intervention if we're looking at prevention measures? We're looking at making sure that those drivers are trained adequately to check the identification, and also to make sure that friends aren't using friends to be delivering this. And same with the takeout food and cocktails, making sure, you know, that's one more preventative measure that we can put into place of friends not delivering to friends. The other issue is with home delivery, it does increase risk for people who have a substance use disorder, you know, because now they don't have to leave their home. So when we look at the increase in consumption equals increase in alcohol misuse, that is one huge risk factor for people who have a substance use disorder. When we're thinking about children, we also have to think about the other increased risk factors of the decrease in role modeling that's going on at home with parents getting alcohol and cocktails to go. What are they role modeling? We have to think about the increase in isolation that's brought on during the pandemic, the decrease in the social norms where it's becoming acceptable to have alcohol delivered to your house, not needing to leave your house. And then we also have to think about some other risk factors, such as the increase in mental health challenges that people are facing during the pandemic. And all of that does relate to, how people are using and consuming alcohol through these home delivery systems. I do think there are some positive protective factors that have happened that we can tie into this. I'm going to share some examples of what some local coalitions have been doing around the state. But because of COVID, we have increased some protective factors, including increased access to resources. So many of our local coalitions are putting out preventative messages. They're increasing resources that might be going out with those home deliveries or different community events, takeout community events, which includes new messages and then also resources for online screenings. So just to share briefly, we have the Mention Prevention campaign. It's #MentionPrevention, and it's a campaign that was with 3 local coalitions. One is the Milford Prevention Council, one is the Trumbull Prevention Council TPOD, and Southington Steps program. And they all were working on the Mention Prevention campaign, which is really ensuring that our businesses with the alcohol delivery are carding and checking IDs and making sure, they pull down the mask, they follow protocols so they can double check that IDs. And then also, and you could find it on milfordpreventioncouncil.org/mentionprevention, you could find what their card looks like. They have a custom insert card that establishments can put for all sales on to-go purchases. So there's a nice prevention message that's going out there. Other communities, another example, and I can't recall off the top of my head what community it was, but they did lawn signs. I know it was up in Region 5. They did lawn signs and they tied it in with the pandemic. It says, wash your hands, wear a mask, and drink responsibly. So there's a lot of different ways that we can incorporate not just safely checking carding IDs. We can work with our local police to make sure that they're in compliance with the liquor laws, as we heard. And we could also include these prevention messages with our local establishments. Others have handed out in some of the info cards to make sure that if they're getting alcohol delivered, that it's not in the hands of minors, that it's stored safely when it comes into the home. They've encouraged parents to use those safety caps that go on to make sure that youth are accessing the alcohol after it's been left out. So there's a lot of different things that communities are doing that are great prevention messages to help curb this. And that's all I have right now. And I'm happy to answer questions on the prevention aspect of it.
Great, thank you, Pam. And the chat box has been busy, so I'm sure we will have questions for everyone. Officer Rinaldi.
Hey guys, good morning. Can you hear me? Cool. My name is Christopher Rinaldi. I'm currently employed as a police officer at the Naugatuck Police Department in Connecticut and have been since June of 2019. First and foremost, I just want to thank you, Deborah, for inviting me to speak on this topic, as well as everyone else involved with the Governor's Prevention Partnership, and for taking this topic seriously and trying to provide education to others regarding this matter. Before working at the Naugatuck PD, I was a police officer in New Haven from 2014 to 2019. I now work as the school resource officer at the Naugatuck High School here in town. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, a typical day for me consisted of interacting with the students on a personal and law enforcement level. I think my job here at the school is to first and foremost ensure the safety of the students and staff members, but I'm also here to guide the youth, give them advice, help them build confidence and problem-solving skills in regards to peer pressure, and lastly, enforce the law. So I have a couple of statistics here. I'll start with the Connecticut statistics. Most of them are DUI related, and then I'll get into some more Naugatuck specific stats. So Connecticut averaged 106 DUI deaths per year between 2008 and 2017. 2011 was the lowest year with 94 deaths, and 2013 was the highest year with 126 deaths. In 2019, in the state of Connecticut, there were 2,911 DUI-related crashes. And between 2018 and 2019, there were 8,390 DUI arrests made in the state of Connecticut. More specifically to the town of Naugatuck, where I work, in 2018, as a department, we made 122 DUI arrests. And in 2019, we made 147 DUI arrests. 64 crashes were directly related to alcohol, and 25 of those crashes came with injuries to the operator or the victim. Something that we're proud of here in Naugatuck is that we consistently make the most DUI arrests per capita in the state of Connecticut, which I believe is directly correlated with our focus on motor vehicle enforcement and curbing drinking and driving. Year to date, as a department, we have conducted roughly 2,670 motor vehicle stops, and out of those stops, 98 of them have resulted in a DUI. And I wanted to just stress these numbers, why they were so important to me, is because not all, but a majority of these individuals have been Naugatuck adult residents who obviously were once Naugatuck juvenile residents. So the police, working hand in hand with substance abuse professionals and policymakers, if we could effectively step in and educate the younger people in Naugatuck and Connecticut, hopefully we could see a drastic decrease in these numbers in the years to come. More relatable to the topic that we're speaking about today, the Naugatuck Police Department also runs a police and youth initiative, which typically involves 2 officers, which we hire periodically throughout the year to monitor liquor stores, bars, conduct compliance checks around town. We usually do this in a plainclothes capacity, which allows us to target problem areas where underage drinking or access to alcohol may occur, which is different from that of the average adult. So most underage drinking doesn't occur during common hours of the day, and more commonly is seen occurring in the evening and on weekends. I believe that underage drinking usually occurs in a remote location, maybe like a party in the woods, but most commonly probably in the privacy of a residential home, often where a parent is not present. Like I said, we also conduct compliance checks regularly in town, which could be done really whenever the officer feels necessary. Again, most typically on nights and on weekends. I think I answered somebody in the chat. They asked if the police usually do it on their own or with the Liquor Commission. Sometimes we do it alone, and sometimes we go out with the Liquor Commission. I guess it just depends. I have some more statistics here from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, most specifically on underage drinking. It's estimated that nearly 1/3 of teens have had one alcoholic drink by the age of 15. Nearly 60% of teens have had at least one alcoholic drink by the age of 18. In 2015, about 7.7 million young people between the ages of 12 and 20 reported that they used alcohol beyond having just a few sips. It is estimated that approximately 11% of all the alcoholic beverages consumed in the United States are consumed by individuals between the ages of 12 and 20, most of it coming from within their own homes or being supplied to them by somebody over the age of 21. Where I think that law enforcement and the communities can come together, if they want to control the general availability of alcohol to youth, they could implement some of the following strategies. Number one is limit the number of location and stores in certain areas of the community and determine whether the concentration should be limited. They could also, what Connecticut does is limit the hours of sale in license agreements or license renewals. regulate that individuals be 21 to serve, sell, or deliver alcohol, as well as prohibit minors from entering bars, ensure identification checks are being done on everyone entering the establishment. Naugatuck also has many programs to prevent youth from partaking in underage drinking. One of the most effective being initiated by the Naugatuck Youth Services Program, which I'll talk about a little bit later. The program that they've created is called Step Up Naughty, which provides a lot of guidelines for parents and guardians to curb underage drinking along with the police. So some suggestions that I would give to parents if they came to me here in school or on the street. Some suggestions for parents, if their kid was going to be hosting a party at home in their residence, would maybe help them plan it, make a guest list and invite only a specific number of people. Try to avoid an open party situation. Don't send out invitations on social media or things like that. And if they do send out invitations, I would recommend that the parents put their phone number on there and welcome other calls from parents. Set rules ahead of time, such as no alcohol, tobacco, or other drugs, and set a start and end time for the party. Have plenty of food and non-alcoholic beverages at the house. Let the neighbors know in advance that there's going to be a party. Limit the party access to a certain area of the house. And invite other parents to help if there's a lot of people there. When parents are away or out of town from the home, I recommend that they set and communicate rules and standards to be followed. Don't allow underage youth to have unsupervised parties or gatherings. Remind them of their responsibilities and the consequences of their actions if they do decide to drink while they're underage. And maybe have a relative or responsible adult stay at your home during the absence. If your child is attending a party at somebody else's house, I would recommend that you know where they will be. Ask how many people are going to be there and offer to supervise. Make certain that the host will not be serving or allowing alcohol. Indicate the expectations to the child and the parent hosting the party. Set a curfew. Assure your child that they could call you if something does go wrong and they feel that people are drinking at the party and they're uncomfortable. And a couple other suggestions that I give to parents here at the school. Get to know the kids' friends and their parents. Find out what their parents' view is on alcohol and drugs. Let them know that it's illegal to serve minors or allow minors to have alcohol on their property. Encourage an alcohol-free and drug-free lifestyle. Along with the Step Up Naughty program, Naugatuck Youth Services also offers the law enforcement here in town the opportunity to refer youth to what we have is called a Juvenile Review Board. And I think that that's something nice and something that I use a lot here in the school because it affords the child the opportunity to educate themselves and participate in some community service in the place of, issuing them a misdemeanor summons or an infraction or going through the court process. I personally think that it places more of a responsibility on the child rather than the parents. For instance, if I was to issue somebody an infraction ticket for something that they did wrong, it's not going to be the child that's paying the ticket. It's probably going to be the parent. So I think that the Juvenile Review Board allows the child to truly understand what they did wrong. Some other things that Naugatuck offers, we also have 4 certified DARE officers. They go to the DARE school and they learn the curriculums that are targeted towards elementary and middle school children in town. This helps to make them aware of the negative effects of peer pressure related to underage drinking and drug use. The officers that are DARE certified go into the school once a week until the program is complete. I think that as a police officer, some of the most important things that I've learned when speaking with the kids here at school in regards to underage drinking is really showing them that I disapprove of it, explaining to them that I care about their happiness and well-being, and I'm not just the police. I want to show them that I'm a good source of information about the rules surrounding the consumption of alcohol. I want to let them know that I pay attention to them when they're in school, even though I don't see them much during COVID. And that if I see them in town, I'll notice if they're acting strange or if they're drinking or if they're doing something that they're not supposed to. And really help the students and the other kids in the community build skills and strategies for themselves to avoid underage drinking and stand up to peer pressure. And I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Lisa, do you want to go through some of the questions that were in our chat box?
Hi there. This is Lisa. Sure, I'd be happy to. One of the questions is, someone asked, does delivery staff of drinks off-site have to be 21 years old? And I heard someone mentioned, I think, I'm not sure who it was, said that Instacart drivers had to be 18 and Grubhub had to be 19. I don't know if there's any regulations given the age of delivery drivers here in Connecticut. I don't know.
That was me, Lisa. Yes. So Connecticut, according to when I did research for this presentation, according to Grubhub and Uber Eats and Instacart, they all have specific age for employment depending on the state that you live in.
Okay. So for us, it's the 18 for Instacart, and then Uber Eats and Grubhub was 19.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So I can see where you were talking about friends providing for friends and how that gets challenging. Let's see what else. We had another question. Are there any ready-to-go resources available for retailers or establishments? And Carrie posted some information from Vermont, Iowa, and North Carolina. And we can share all of these resources that have been posted in the chat box for folks. So I think that's what you were addressing, Carrie, was, okay, thank you. Another question was, what home delivery services are being used in Connecticut? And Pam mentioned 3 of them. Grubhub, Uber Eats, and Instacart. I don't know if people are familiar with another. I know Robert Willard mentioned the UPS and FedEx and those. So I know those are delivering as well. But is anyone else aware of home delivery services that are being used?
Lisa, there's local package stores are doing home deliveries as well. Many of them have signs that they will now do delivery to your homes if you just call your local establishment.
Along with grocery stores. Connecticut grocery stores can deliver beer with food orders.
Oh, okay.
So as long as they're doing a delivery directly themselves. Okay. Otherwise, they would have, again, if they're not doing, if a package store or a grocery store in Connecticut are not doing it themselves directly by their employees, they would have to hire somebody with a transporter's permit.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And in Connecticut, the age, now Grubhub and Uber Eats might have different age requirements. In Connecticut, you only have to be 18 to sell or deliver alcohol.
Thank you. We had another question about, does the app or program that a person is using that they're ordering from, let's see, does the app or program the delivery person uses send them a notification when they're selling to someone underage? So does it do a check if I'm using some kind of an app, I'm a delivery person, will it tell me automatically if the scanned ID is not of age?
Yes, it will. It'll instruct the delivery driver to return the alcoholic beverages to the retailer, and it'll tell them that they're underage.
Excellent. Thank you.
And let me just interject, like Matthew explained in his compliance check, just because you scanned it on some kind of system is not the end all be all. The person should be still looking at the ID, confirming the picture, asking questions about the ID, like what's your address? Because if they're borrowing somebody else's license, most of these kids, they don't memorize the information on the other person's license. So it's more to it than just scanning it. We try to do that when we haven't done in Connecticut home delivery compliance checks, but we've done a lot of compliance checks with package stores and grocery stores where we use undercover minors to go in and try to purchase with a liquor agent undercover just to witness any sale if it takes place. And a lot of people you see them check an ID and they have their thumb over the picture and they're not even really looking at it, the clerks and stuff. So after we do these compliance checks, like Matthew said, we try to teach the retailers too, look at the ID, make sure you're looking at the person in front of you, that's them. And I think Carrie said it too, they have the right to refuse anybody and they shouldn't feel bad about it. Whether the person has a valid ID or not, they don't feel comfortable, don't sell. That's the end of it.
Thank you. Let's see. There was a question and Matthew answered this about if they scan the ID, does it give that information and it instructs them to, the person is not of age, it instructs them to return the alcohol to the retailer. Does information get sent back to the retailer? And the answer is no. It doesn't collect information about that. Is that correct, Matthew?
That's correct. And just to add one more thing about scanning the identifications, we're seeing a lot of identifications being ordered from China, and these will actually scan. That's
Okay.
why, just to go back on the same point, it's important that they actually check the identification, hold it, examine it for irregularities.
Thank you. And we had a question about compliance checks in Connecticut. Is it the Division of Liquor Control doing these, local police, or both? And it's all three, my understanding. Or it's local police can do them on their own, and they can do them in compliance or in cooperation, I should say, collaboration with Division of Liquor Control. Robert, when Division of Liquor Control does compliance checks, do they ever do them without the local police, or are they usually doing it in collaboration with the local police?
If an undercover minor is involved, we'll do it with the police department.
Okay.
If we're just doing surveillance on a package store, and we're just watching young kids walk out, young looking people come out of a package store, we'll caught them ourselves. But if an undercover minor is involved, the police will sometimes do that on their own.
Yeah.
But police departments, they like doing it with us because we do all the paperwork.
Okay, makes sense.
Then it's easier for the police department that way. They're there for the protection of everybody, in the scene, and for the minor, most importantly, protect the minor because they're going in there undercover. But it is better terms. It's just a cut and dry case at that point if someone sells to that undercover minor.
And it also adds to state data collection as well. That's
correct. Yes, then it'll be easier to track that data. Yeah. You're correct.
Okay, thank you. We had another question about, are there current fine suspension guidelines for failed alcohol compliance in Connecticut? Is there a link to that? I believe you can link to stores that have failed compliance checks.
Yeah, someone could request. Yeah, we could do a search, like you said, on who we charged, and then if it was a particular store. But our system, to my knowledge, we don't collect data on like total fines of a whole compliance check per town or anything like that. But someone could search by that type of charge on a liquor permit and get a list of liquor permits who were charged during a compliance check.
Okay. And if somebody like a coalition wanted to share, just to educate package stores or retailers what the fines and suspensions are for failing a compliance check, that's posted. They can find that on the on the website?
Yeah, it's if you go to, it's Connecticut law 30-113, which is penalties. And is also could be broken down again under 30-86, which is actually the sale delivery to a minor law. And it ranges because the commission does have discretion. I mean, it could be, I'm just giving you it could be anywhere from, let's say, a $500 fine and 1 day suspension to a $1,500 fine and 3 day suspension for each sale to a minor.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. What should someone do if there's a complaint of a home delivery service against a permitted transporter, UPS or FedEx? Would they report that to you?
Yes.
Robert?
Yes, they can report that directly to the Department of Consumer Protection, Liquor Control Division. If you go to the Consumer Protection website, right on the front, on the main page, there is a complaint link to file an online complaint.
Okay, thank you. Another question, quick. Do we know if anyone in Connecticut or nationally has recently canvassed the current environment over the last 4 months? Either through Search Institute surveys or at the university or high school level? If so, has that data shown us any indicators of what we could be concerned about? I know Pam shared some stuff anecdotally, and also Dawn had posted, Don Grodsky from DEMIS, Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, that some local evaluators are conducting focus groups with young people and parents about this issue as well. And they'll have some information, data to share at the end of this month, as well as some schools may be adding, or some community coalitions may be adding specific questions about where young people are accessing alcohol. May not be specifically these questions, but those are some data sources. Does anyone have any others that they wanted to mention?
I would tell folks to work with their local prevention councils or their drug-free communities, because they many times do the student surveys. And I would ask them to ask their local prevention councils or drug-free communities to see their data, or go to their websites, because most of that data is shared with the communities. So there is data available through the local communities that are doing data collection.
Great, thank you, Pam. Okay, it says, where can we find data of increased alcohol sales in Connecticut during COVID? And I don't know, Pam, yes.
I can't remember where I pulled it from, and it was from the state website. Robert might have a better answer for that, where I pulled the 55% off.
Actually, I was going to ask you, Pam.
It was on one, I can't remember what state website it was on.
The only thing I can think of is if you could get a hold of revenue records for alcohol tax.
That's what I was thinking
to see if
too.
their revenues went up on the tax
Lisa?
side.
Yes.
Lisa, it's Jen. I posted the link to the sales reports for the state of Connecticut in the chat box.
Thank you.
So you can see the sales for every year by year and by month. So if you want to do a comparison over time, you can do that as well.
Did you get that, Jen, from Department of Revenue Services?
It's on the state alcohol sales reports.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And then we have some interesting articles. We also shared some other coalitions that have been working on the mention prevention. Greenwich is doing it, Groton, Wolcott and Stratford have also been participating. Let's see. Thank you, Jen, for posting that. I mentioned the DEMIS and the local focus groups. Let's see. I just mentioned that I knew of a now retired police chief in a smaller Connecticut suburban community who used to tell parents when parents had to travel away from home and leave their teenagers, to tell the kids that they were telling the police that they would be going away and asking the police to drive by the house and monitor their house. And then the police, it was a small police station, would follow through, you know, and drive by the house. So that way the kids were on notice, you know, that people knew we were going away. Okay. Let's see. Okay, Drizzly is another app that people mentioned. Someone asked, how much does the app cost? I'm not sure what Greg meant by that. Do you mean how much does it cost for an individual user to order, to use the app to purchase alcohol? Is that what you mean, Greg? Or is it how much does it cost for like a package store to purchase the app?
Well, no, the application. How much does it cost? Is it a monthly thing? Is it a yearly thing? Do you just buy it and you're good to go? Does it cover all licenses in all states? Does it cover? There's a million things. You know, does it cover passports, out of country IDs, or is it just specific to Connecticut IDs? And so I would, you know, I'm really interested in it because, you know, obviously you have to be 21 now to buy tobacco products. So I think the technology is worth looking into.
I'll touch on this a little bit if possible. At least the apps that the delivery drivers were doing in our study, they were proprietary apps for each service. Postmates, Instacart, you know, Amazon. They had their own apps that they had that they utilize to track the deliveries. So it's not one that somebody would go out and purchase. There are other apps that law enforcement uses, such as Age ID is one that we use as an agency, that we can scan IDs and it will tell us whether the person's of age or not. It'll also hint to us whether it's a potentially fake ID as well. I don't know how much that costs. It's purchased by the agency.
Thank you. Has there been any violence due to a person being refused alcohol by a driver? Has anyone heard of any stories or anecdotes about that?
No, I've not heard anything yet.
Okay. For SROs and RBHAOs or local coalitions, do you notice any changes in parental norms on allowing drinking at home by underage youth? Have you heard stories or have any data about changing parent norms?
I put a little comment in the comment section about that. Not that I'm aware of, but you know, now that I think about it more, I don't think that it would be, you know, often reported to the police if, you know, if the parents were providing their own children with alcohol at home. I don't think that they would be reporting it unless it was somebody, you know, unless it was a third party that came forward who was there and reported it, which I also haven't seen. So
I think we may be, thank you. I think we may be getting some information about this from this focus group study that DEMIS and Center for Prevention and Evaluations and Statistics, CPIS, is going to be doing this month, the last month or so on their focus group. So we may be getting information about that. We have for Greg Carver and Stephanie Moran did a compliance study. Did they want to share? This was prior to COVID. Any lessons learned that apply to this situation?
Hi, Lisa, it's Stephanie.
Hi, Stephanie.
In lieu of time, I'll just give a quick little update, I guess. From that study, given it was pre-COVID, one thing that still applies here that we talked about a lot is just the importance of checking IDs. We did notice a lot of the servers were, you know, they didn't really want confrontation and they didn't want that awkward conversation of already, you know, thinking the person was underage and having, you know, potential conflict. So definitely just having retailers empower their servers and sellers to check those IDs and make the right decision. That's one thing that I think will still apply here.
Okay, thank you. one person, Kathy Hazlett, mentioned that focus group results, that they're doing the focus groups are showing that some adults are allowing their kids to drink, juniors and seniors. So that addresses the question someone had earlier. And Dawn Grodsky from reinforced that from Demas, that parents are drinking more during COVID and that there's more alcohol in their homes, increasing access for youth. And I think that may be it from the questions. From the chat box, what I would like to do is be able to copy all of this and edit it so you all will have additional resources, and we can send that out. So that will be one of my goals. So
yeah,
thank you, everyone. I don't know if there's any additional questions.
We'll make sure that all of the content is shared, all of the links and the references. I've really appreciated people sharing in the chat box. Thank you so much. I am going to launch a quick poll. I know we're at time. I appreciate everyone for staying on. I'm going to launch the quick poll, and then Dan, if you had something else to add, feel free.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just wanted to mention too, maybe, this does provide a lot of opportunities for us, even with the fines and the regulation stuff. So I don't know if we're requiring people that deliver to be like tip certified or serve safe, stuff like that. But maybe that's one of the things we could look into as well, in addition to a fine instead of in lieu of. But just making sure maybe that changes how people are looking at IDs and everything else. And it's really important too. I know Officer Rinaldi brought up the education awareness piece for kids, but for parents as well. There's a lot of alcoholic beverages now coming in, like juice boxes. I think Carrie mentioned that, like milk cartons, stuff like that. So just making sure our adults are aware of what's going on with the children when they're not home too. So that's all I have.
Thanks so much. So up on your screen, in addition to the survey, thanks for those who have been taking it, are Lisa and my contact information. We will follow up with the contact information of our speakers. Again, thank you very much for our subject matter experts for sharing their time and information. I know I've learned quite a bit. And again, thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm going to go ahead and end the polling. And yes, we hope to see you at future presentations and conversations. I know that we here at the Governor's Prevention Partnership are hosting another presentation in February. We're working with some other folks. We hope to be working with MAD in the near future so that we can continue these conversations and really think about how the increase of alcohol and the normalization of alcohol consumption can be impacting our young people. So thank you again, everyone, for participating, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.